Gratitude, reverence, and love to you. Hello, welcome to Astrology and Magic. Today is our full moon lunar eclipse episode, and I am just so looking forward to it. I'm so excited. It's going to be so good. The moon, as I'm filming this and editing it and getting it out for everyone, is already in Virgo. So probably you're already feeling it. Probably you already have the little creepy, spooky little feely, your spidey senses. I know for me, I've been in ritual basically all day today. The spirits have me up doing my thing. Well, not up, not complete. I've been sleeping a lot. That's been a part of my ritual. It's been fantastic. It's been very necessary. So however you are spending your time with your eclipse energy, I hope that it's really good. We are going to start off the show talking about the eclipse, and then we're going to get into some other things that are happening later on in the week. So if you're curious just about the eclipse, well, welcome in. We have some updates furthermore after. And before we start the show, I also want to invite you to go and follow me on the blog where you get the show updates, the podcast updates. Every time that the podcast gets updated and gets sent out, it will be put up on the blog. It'll be put up there so that everybody can find it, everybody can see it. It gets sent to your inbox. If you're on the Substack app, it'll get sent to you through your notifications or however you have your, regulations and correlations set up over there. I wanted to say thank you. Let me go and look at my numbers actually. You guys have blown up my page recently. I officially have, to me this is blown up, okay? I officially have 135 paid subscribers, and I just want to say thank you. Holy cow, holy cow, holy cow, holy cow. I didn't think I was going to cry at the beginning of the show, but I'm going to right now. Apparently, I have water in my eyes. If you are interested in becoming a paid subscriber, then the option to do so is on the blog. There's going to be a link down in the description. I have been asking spirit for a way to kind of make the transition out of doing some of the reading work that I've been doing. I felt called to just start making more content for a very long time now. It's been many years, and there's been a lot of personal trials and tribulations in the background, and I kind of feel like I'm finally in the perfect spot to be able to receive and keep working and keep growing and keep creating and be able to study and bring more to you on my channels and my spaces and my pages. So that's going to be a lot of my focus moving forward. And I just want to say thanks, because 135 paid subscribers, that's literally crazy. That's literally, like, I remember starting this blog years ago. First of all, that was like the first thing that I did, just a little story background about how I got to where I am, and then we're going to get into the eclipse. So when I started this work online, I've been on the internet forever, okay? I was an internet kid growing up. I've been on the internet forever. But when I started my own blog business sort of space, it was 2017 is when I realized this is when I wanted to do this full time. And here we are, 2025, 8 years later. I've gone through my full initiation to receive the permission and allowance of authority in spirit to be able to do what I do. So I just want to say thank you, because I remember starting this blog. I started that blog in 2017, and there's different blogs I've been on I was on Instagram for a while. I used that as a blog kind of photo platform, and then now Substack is up. And I remember starting Substack, I think it was like a year and a half, 2 years ago. It was right around the time Saturn entered Pisces. I don't remember exactly when, but it was around then. And I remember starting it, and I think I had 8 subscribers at the beginning, and I was like, this is a great start. So the fact that we're at 2,000, we're almost at 2,000 subscribers, and I have 135 paid subscribers. That's first of all crazy to me. Second of all, dreams come true. So thank you. Thank you for being a supporter of my dream. Thank you for being a supporter of what I do. Thank you for being a supporter of the work. Thank you for being a supporter of me. And thank you for allowing me to be in the position that I am in. That is true. So before we begin, congratulations, because the graduation, if you listen to the previous podcast episode, the graduation ceremony has been done. Here we are. We have graduated. We are in the new chapter. We are in the new thing. We're making plans. Okay. So this eclipse understands. This eclipse helps us land. This eclipse gives us grips. This eclipse says, here you go, put some sugar on your lips. Ooh, gonna be real sweet, apparently. Okay, Spirit, let's talk about it. So thank you. Let's go into it. So if you're looking for the information on the transit times and everything, that's going to be down in the description and or on the blog if you're watching on the blog. So we're looking at, I am going to repeat it though, just so that everybody has it. And also, if you're looking for exact specifics later on, you don't have to like scroll back and forth in the time frames. It's written down below. So fullest eclipse is going to be at 6:58 UTC on March 14th. However, the time frame of the eclipse is going to be, where is it? March 14th, 3:57 UTC to 10 that same day, 10 a.m. UTC time. So depending on your time zone, you know, translate as necessary, translate as needed. For I know for me, it'll start on March 13th for a lot of us. For some of us, not a lot of us. A lot of my listeners are over in America. So for basically most Americans, it'll start on the 13th, but then it's mostly going to take place early morning on the 14th. I really hope the skies are clear because I really, really want to be able to look at it and see it. It's like hot to the moon. I remember one of our previous eclipses, I just sat outside. I was like up in the ride of the eclipse. You know, I just kind of work my magic naturally. For eclipses, usually do a whole bunch of ritual work. I just am in ritual in the time and space that I'm in, and I just work the magic how it needs to be, and magic works me how I need to be worked. It's a reciprocity, you know. So I remember one of the previous eclipses, I was sitting, I can't remember what I did or what, I just had the feeling I needed to go outside. I was sitting inside here where I am now. If you're looking at me on the screen, if not, is where I'm at. So I was sitting inside here and I was like, I gotta go outside. So I did. And I sat down and I grounded myself on the ground and I looked up in the sky. It was at the very, very end of the eclipse. So I didn't really get to see it, but I just stared at the moon. I didn't get to see the eclipse, but I stared at the moon, and me and the moon had a big, big transformation together. It was beautiful. Thank you, moon. Thank you, moon. So, and thank you, the earth, and thank you, the sun, because without those three, we couldn't have the eclipses. It's crazy to me. Like, what a crazy event. What a crazy event that the moon goes in such an exact position that every 6 months we have this thing that happens where the earth shadows over the moon, and we also have the moon that shadows over the earth. Talk about celestial crazy alignment of gorgeousness. How does that even happen? How does that even, who planned that? Who structured that? There's gotta be a God in the sky somewhere, because how in the actual heckety heck is that possible? You know what I mean? Of all the different rotational places that the moon could have taken, and you're telling me that it's going to rotate in the exact position so that we get these beautiful astrological, cosmic, celestial, powerful, binding events that's crazy. That's crazy. Okay, so just, you know, some perspective is the magic of eclipse is wild to me. The magic of eclipses are great. They're grand. For those of you who are maybe a little bit newer or don't understand yet, maybe the gravity or the weight of the eclipses, 18 and a half years. That's the cycle of the eclipse, 18 and a half years. So 18 and a half years, we go through this lunar node cycle started at the end of January. We have the North Node in Pisces and we have the South Node in Virgo. This eclipse is happening in Virgo. So this is going to be activating. If you are looking at your personal transits in your personal chart, then looking at your 6th house, your Mercury, and any Virgo placements, that's where this is going to be active. You could also look at your South Node placement, and that's going to be active in any South Node eclipse, no matter the eclipse sign or like what it's in. So just, you know, being aware of that and kind of what's coming up. It'll be interesting. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. I had to look at my notes. I forgot about this. The eclipse is ruling itself. This happened. I said this in the previous episode, and I'm going to say it again in this episode. It's crazy to me. The eclipse is ruling itself. This happens for this eclipse, and this happens for the eclipse that's happening on March 29th as well, the new moon solar eclipse in Aries. So what does it even mean to have the eclipse ruling itself? How does that even work? Because I feel like if I was hearing that for the first time, I'd be like, what the heckity heck, what does that mean? So the eclipse ruling itself. So Virgo's ruled by Mercury. We have the eclipse in Virgo. Virgo's ruled by Mercury. Mercury is going to be in Aries for the eclipse. Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars is in Cancer, which is ruled by the moon, and the moon is where the eclipse is going to be. So really the eclipse, yes, it filters through the other placements, but it's going to be ruling over itself. Virgo. So since it's ruling itself, let's talk a little bit about Virgo and some bigger picture stuff, bigger picture things that could be playing into this. We had a South Node in Scorpio That was in 2021 to 2023. For the previous year and a half, about 2 years, from 2023 to 2025, January of this year, we've had the South Node in Libra. So we just switched over. I said that earlier, I'll say it again. We just switched over to the South Node being in Virgo. When the South Node was in Scorpio, so the relationship, let's talk about the relationship between Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio, since this has kind of been our several previous years. So Virgo is where we kind of accidentally get signed up for stuff. We don't realize that we're signing up for stuff. We don't realize. Sometimes we have the inclination of like, yeah, this is magic, and obviously I'm practicing it, but I have no idea what it's gonna do. Yeah, this is magic. I don't know what it's gonna create. Yeah, but I don't know. So we don't really have room to debate because we don't understand the weight of things yet. Libra is where we start to understand the weight. It's literally the scales balancing, right? So we understand the balance between them. We understand the balance of how do things balance? What is true about this? If we're going to have a transaction, what is the equality of things? That's a lot of the reason it has to do with justice, with Libra. Justice and having the justice orientation of deliverance and things that are going through. It's also about mirroring and mirror magic, our relationships, how we mirror with people. More on that another time, probably, possibly. And also the Scorpio space is where we actually have the exchanges that we signed up for in Virgo. So in Virgo, we may not understand what we're signing up for, but we're still practicing. We're still signing up for stuff. Libra is where we balance things. We become more aware that there is a transaction that is about to happen or we're in the middle of, and we're creating the balance of things so that when we have the exchange, we can make an informed decision on if there needs to be an exchange, how's the exchange going to happen, when's it going to happen, how much risk are we putting ourselves in, is there a risk, what's the danger, how can we protect ourselves, all the contractual different aspects of inheritance. That's going to be the Scorpio space. Now the lunar nodes, they move in reverse. You know how we talk about retrogrades in astrology? It's like Venus right now is retrograde. We're about to go through a Mercury retrograde. It's when the planet appears to be moving backwards in our skyline. So the retrogrades, they do a lot of different things. In our common tongue of astrology, we talk about retrogrades being a time of reconsideration. We're kind of working backwards on some things and like going back in time a little bit. And also retrogrades have several different magical functions. So they are binding, they are harvest. What else is a retrograde? Yes, the reconsideration of things for sure. And then the reason it's like a binding and a harvest is because we kind of get ourselves set up for when the planet goes direct and it's moving forward again in the sky, and then we land again in the next retrograde where we're harvesting everything that we set ourselves up for in the previous retrograde. So there are times of harvest, there are times of binding, and we also are in reconsideration because it's like, okay, well, I've been in this place, where do I want to go now? And since the lunar nodes are always moving backwards, they're always going in reverse, the stories are always getting, it's like the moon never retrogrades. The moon doesn't ever retrograde, it's always moving forward. The lunar nodes, they are always moving in reverse. So even though we don't have moon retrogrades, the lunar node cycles kind of work like on a very large level, because lunar node cycles are 18 and a half years. That's a crazy long time. And so it's really big impacts. There's a lot of stuff that's going on. There's a lot of stuff that's happening. Those reversals that happen on the lunar node cycles, those are what allow us to bind up and harvest on our long terms, while we're also kind of constantly in reverse. So it's like we do all this work with the moon to move forward, move forward, move forward, move forward. And the eclipses come through and they're like, hey, okay, let's slow down. First of all, let's harvest some of the stuff that you've been doing. Let's look at some reconsideration of things. Who have you been? Where do you want to go now? And at the same time, the moon is asking us to continue to be on a small scale base level, because the moon every month has a cycle versus the lunar nodes being every 18 years, which is crazy. So just some perspective on the way that the different eclipse cyclings are cycling, right? So if we go back to the Scorpio, the Libra, and the Virgo, what happened in 2021 to 2023 when Scorpio, the South Node, was active, we were in some contracts, probably ancestral contracts. And if you're thinking about what was happening in the world around that time too, like 2021 to 2023 was just post-COVID. We were technically still in the middle of it. There was a lot of stuff going on for a lot of different people. Lives were changing, things were rearranging. It was kind of a scary time for some people. There was a lot of stuff happening that was just kind of very consequential, but we didn't have a lot of control over it. And there was a lot of, chaos, maybe? Is that the word? Chaos is a pretty big word, but you know what? Maybe there's some chaos going on. We had to make some decisions based on that. There's also, with Scorpio, contracts that were coming up for review, things that we were doing, power that was being either taken from us or that we were taking from other people. And then when we have the South Node in Libra, and that's going to be again 2023 to 2025, this earlier in January, or later in January is when it switched over, but earlier in the year in January. So earlier in the year, literally, it's March. LOL. Okay, so moving on though. Also though, it's March. Like, where did the time go? How did we get here so quick? Time flies. Okay. So anyways, that switch over when we were in Libra, we were really working on balancing everything that we've been through. These contracts that came up in Scorpio allowed us to see where the imbalances were, things that were harsh, things that were hard. Where are we not earning enough? How are we not earning enough? Where are people taking from us? How do we need to protect ourselves? So we had to rebalance. We had to bring in the rebalancing work. Not to mention the dark moon at the end of the South Node in Libra was a huge part of the transits, which is the dark mothers. So it's like the mothers that have no name, the mothers who are in the shadows, the mothers who do have a name but function on a very, very secretive level and have the wisdoms that we most of the time sometimes do not, and they reveal it very, how do I say, the dark moon has a lot to do with the taking of innocence so that we can understand, but that's not always a fun thing. Innocence being taken, there's a reason that is the darkness. Yeah. So it is what it is. So it's interesting to me that while that's happening this season, well, the dark moon's moving into Scorpio this season, and we're getting out of contracts from the Scorpio. We'll probably go over that when the dark moon does move into Scorpio, but let's put a pin in it. Okay, let's just like put a thumbtack in it. We'll put it on a sticky note. We'll put it on the wall, and we're gonna call it up when the transit actually happens, because that's happening in a couple of weeks. So, or next week. When does it happen? March 27th. It's right before the next eclipse. So we'll talk about it a little bit later on, that dark moon, but just to you know, put a pin in it. If you're someone who works with the shadows and the feminine shadows and the shadow mothers and the shadow, yeah, okay, we're gonna talk about it later on. It's an important part of the journey. And also, let's focus on the big stuff right now. So when it comes to the Virgo, now that we're in the Virgo space, it's like, okay, we've been through these harsh contracts. We've harvested a lot of ancestral gunk. We've harvested a lot of ancestral junk, okay, stuff that stunk. Get the stinkiness out. Get the stinkiness out. I don't need to carry it. I don't need to carry it. I don't need to carry it. Let us bury it. Let us bury it. It had to come up for a harvest. Okay, well, let's put it to death. Love you, death. Let's put it to death so that we do not ever have to cross it again, ever in our lineage. Let's put it to death so that we do not ever have to bring it up again, ever in our lineage. Love you, death. Love you, death. Love you, death. Okay, so with Virgo, now that we're having this sort of place of like, we get to see the clarity of all the work that we really did in the previous several years to harvest those icky, maybe gunky, yunky contracts, and also the power struggles and power taming kind of balance of things. Not to mention Pluto moving out of Capricorn had a lot of big impact on that. Pluto moving out of Capricorn and into Aquarius. We're focused now not so much on the systematic inheritance from the ancestors or like the hard lessons of Saturn. We're focused on more about now, what are we going to do with them? How are we going to use what we've inherited? We've cleared a lot of stuff out, but now what are we going to do with it? Now that we have these inheritances and we've kind of cleared some stuff, harvested some stuff, reaped what has been sown before we got here, now what? Now what? And so there's a lot of that's happening with this eclipse, because with this eclipse, we're kind of making this big turnaround moment of looking at all of these different places and spaces where we were ruled by things from our ancestry that we didn't have any control over. We just inherited it and we had to figure it out. We didn't have any control over where our parents came from. We didn't have any control over where we came from. We don't have any control over those sorts of things. You know, we were born into a body and then boom, here we are. So we get to choose kind of what we do with it though, and the person that we create out of it. There's also some cycles, especially with Pluto having been in Capricorn while that South Node was in Scorpio. There's just some cycles that take time. There's some things you can't get out of before it's time. Some things just take time and you're going to be stuck in it until Spirit allows us to move on. So now we're moving on. That's what this is. That's what this eclipse is. We're done. We're done. The allowance and I was talking about earlier, being allowed to be in this position and to bring the information and to have the dreams come true, okay? Now being here with all that you've reaped and all that you've sowed and everything that you've grown and everything that you've shown and everything that you've flown and everything that's blossomed, bloomed, okay, groomed, whatever it is that you've been working, grooving, moving in. That's true. We're moving on. It's finally time. We're finally being allowed to put down what we've been carrying. We're finally being allowed to move on into our next chapter. We're finally being allowed. We're finally being allowed. We're out of timeout. We're out of, if you've been in ancestral timeout, I know that that's applicable to me. If you've been in ancestral timeout for a while, you've been carrying cycles for your lineage for a while that just did not feel like your style, okay? And you've been really doing the work to break the bonds, break the moves, break the circles, break the cycles. If you've been harvesting that, working in it, well, here we are, okay? And we don't have to go back. We don't have to go back. We do not have to return. We do not have to relearn. We do not have to re-earn. We do not have to reburn. We don't have to return. We don't have to. So with this eclipse, we're going to have a really kind of a monumental moment. This monumental moment where things get very quiet and we're able to sit and listen and regenerate. Literally, ancestrally regenerate. We've been in this generational cycle. We've been in these generational works. We've been in the generation of the blood that has come before us. And now we get to regenerate. So what are we regenerating? What is the purpose of the regeneration? Where will that energy go now for the future generations? Where will the energy go now for what will be left behind? Where will the energy go now for what it is that you want to create for you and yourself and your family and the world, the community? What is it that you're doing so that there can be, it's basically like binding up new contracts with death. Is a lot of what death and life, because you know what, they go together, it's hand in hand, right? So binding up new contracts with death and life. And a lot of the times, again, with Virgo, when we're looking at, yeah, this is what I want, yeah, this is the magic I practice, yeah, this is the clarity, yeah, this is the direction, yeah, this is it. We don't need to further inspect. It's just a knowing. We don't need to further inspect it. We just understand. And a lot of the times, Virgos, even though we do not understand maybe what it will cost us, we understand in Virgo energy that the cost is worth it. If you look at Virgo, it's the story of Persephone and Demeter, where Persephone, she eats the pomegranate seeds and ends up with Hades in the underworld, the bride. She ends up down there. She inherits the power of the underworld, which is the underworld being the Scorpio placement. And so that's why we're talking about really in the indirectness and directly the relationship between the Scorpio South node that we had, because it's a big part of our Virgo story. So Persephone eats the seed. She ends up with Hades. They're in the underworld. And then everything up above starts to die, because Persephone's power is to bring the life, is to bring the fertility, is to bring the blossoms and the fruit. So Demeter comes down to the underworld and is like, you gotta let her come back up here. You gotta, like, we are starving. There's things that are not growing. It's becoming isolate. It's becoming desolate. So Virgo also has a lot to do with staying until the very end, because we're staying until the very end within the underworld season, and then we have to stay till the very end in the upper world season. So a lot of the times too with Virgo, it's like we're stuck in a contract that allows us some wiggle room. Like there's always ways to kind of get around things or unbind some things or understand a little bit more. One of I can't remember who it was, but someone who follows me, I think it was on YouTube, they gave me the perspective, and thank you. If you're here right now, I'm so sorry I don't remember your name. You are many comments ago, many videos ago. I don't remember where this came from. And thank you for saying this. They gave the perspective on how in the Persephone Demeter story, in the Virgo story, I think this is so beautiful. That's why I want to share it with you. Persephone receives the power in the underworld that the mother cannot have as the daughter. Persephone, as the daughter, receives the power in the underworld that the mother is not able to access and the mother is not able to generate, which I just think is so interesting. And I'm so very grateful for that perspective. I'm so very grateful for that perspective. So we also have a lot of mother-daughter stories that could be coming up on this Virgo full moon eclipse. There could be a lot of ancestral inheritance when it comes to the matriarchal lineages or the woman lineages. I've been seeing a lot of stuff pop up on my TikTok, YouTube spaces on the witch wound recently as well. So the bringing up of these different places and spaces within, again, the ancestral inheritance and what has come before us in our lineages, especially when it comes to our feminine and especially when it comes to our mother stories and our mother wounds, what we've done with them and who we are becoming because of what we've decided to do with the power that's been offered to us. Now, this eclipse, it's going to be different for everyone. So I said earlier to go and look at your 6th house, your Mercury placement, your Virgo, the house that it's in, and anything ruled by Virgo, and then go and looking at your South node. So if you're looking at your 6th house, if you're looking at those placements, those are going to be what's highlighted. What is this full moon eclipse in Virgo really going to offer to you? What's going to be a focus of this? What's going to be brought through? Is there any that's going to be kind of like your lens of perspective? It'll also help you understand direction, directive. It'll help you to look through maybe any particulars. We have Saturn right now involved in Pisces, where the North Node is, where the Sun is. So lots of details, lots of very specific verbiages from the spirits that are coming through because of that Saturn placement right now. So if you're looking to, thank you Spirit for that, that's true. If you're looking for more clarity on your personal sort of space with this energy, then definitely go look at those places in your chart. We're also too, I was talking about looking at your personal South node. Since the South node's in Virgo, your South node will also be active for the eclipse, for this one. So if you're looking at your South node, that's going to be some of the energy. The South node is usually like pretty easy energy to work with. Yes, it requires work. Yes, it requires us to sit in the work and do the work and be in the work and create through that energy. But we naturally usually have the skills and or it's really easy to learn the skills that are necessary to be in that. So your personal South node is going to lend its hand to help with this energy as well. That's going to be for any South node eclipse. We just happen to have the South node in Virgo for this eclipse. So a trick of the trade for future dates for eclipses. So if you want to go and look at that South node in your chart and look kind of, you could look at how those placements correlate as well. Is there any reflections? Is there any, further inspections, directions, things that could be helpful for you within those placements to understand a little bit about what's going on? What's another thing that needs to be said about this? Is there anything? So let's get back to actually the eclipse ruling itself. Let's talk a little bit more about that because we have, I'm going to go over it again. I know I already said it, but I'm going to go over it again. So Virgo's ruled by Mercury. Mercury's going to be in Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars right now is in Cancer. Cancer is ruled by the moon, and that is the eclipse. So we have this circle. We have this cycle where it's like we're being filtered through. Aries rules the head. Virgo rules our digestive system and more of like our, I call it earth information integration. So it's like how our body feels, the indirect body language communication, what's our stomach saying to us, the gut intuition of things. It's also the way that I look at this energy as well as like if you put your hand on the earth, what's the land saying to you without words? Like how does the earth talk to you? How do the land spirits talk to you? Just because you are connected to the land and to the earth. So that's also going to be a lot of Virgo. Virgo doesn't always have a lot to say, but when it does, it's usually pretty important and it's usually very impactful. So since we're right before a Mercury retrograde, which is crazy to me, Mercury goes retrograde on the 15th. So literally like the day after the eclipse. So this Mercury retrograde that's coming up, it's like we have this huge illumination in this eclipse, this huge monumental moment of reposition within ourselves of our power and our inheritance and our contracts and what is it that we're looking for when it comes to opening a new door. And that new door is going to be the new moon solar eclipse that's happening on the 29th. So we have a couple of weeks of reconsideration, some understanding, some some maybe open handing. Do we need to let some things be? Do we need to grow some things? What do we need to see about our life and ourself and our lineage and our practice and our work and our wants and our desires and our shadows? So it's a lot of, it's just a lot. It's just a lot, guys. That's a lot. So we have a lot of this energy. That's really true, honestly. We have a lot of different, that's so true. We have a lot of different, like, just introspection. Virgo is very internal with its communication. So lots of internal communication. And then Mercury going retrograde right after this. Again, what did I say about retrogrades at the beginning? Binding and harvest. So it's like we have this time frame to reconsider, to bind some things up when it comes to the Mercury energy. And then Mercury for the eclipse that's happening in Aries on the 29th. The Mercury retrograde is also going to still be in Aries. So we are in this like really, really big time of binding up this new direction for ourselves, binding up a new direction. And what do I say what do I mean when I say binding? Because I get that question every once in a while when I'm talking on like TikTok, YouTube spaces about, you know, binding work. What do I mean binding? Okay, so let's talk about that. If you're binding yourself up in new decisions, then it's final. It's like a finality. It's something that you're either probably not going to be able to get out of. It's like a decision, the decision that you're like not only really sure about, and even if you're not sure, because Virgo, sometimes we have to make decisions kind of blinded. So even if you're not sure about it, it's like, that's the truth of it. That's what it really needs to be. That's what I've already accomplished. That's what I've already done. That's what I've already received. So I might as well go on through and do this new thing. Like, I'm bound to it now. I can't get out of it. I'm going to be in it. And yeah, the bindings. Bindings, how do I say this? Bindings for, in my experience, bindings for people who maybe are not, when I first, let's talk about that. I'll talk on a personal level. When I first started learning about bindings, I had to really get into my rebellious spirit just because of my history with not being, how do I say this? Because of my story with bindings and how bindings have been used against me in my lifetime, which we're not going to really get into. That's what it is on a personal level. There's a lot of things in my life that have been not a friend, you know? So when it came to bindings, when Spirit finally was like, it's time for you to start learning about bindings, when that was said to me, kind of indirectly, when that was said to me, I started to rebel a lot. That was my rebellious phase of witchery, my rebellious phase of like, well, I'm not following these rules anymore. I'm not doing what the spirits say. I'm not doing this. No. You're teaching me about bindings and you're revealing these truths to me about how we're bound up in things and why we're bound up in things and what the power is of those. I'm not, no. So I went through a really, really rebellious phase. I still, you know, I have to access that part of myself sometimes, necessary to be rebellious occasionally, you know? So if you're new to binding work, understand that it is a really big responsibility to carry that wisdom, and also very useful information. It's very, 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 very protective, very directive, very useful. So if that's something that you're interested in learning about, or you feel called to sit with and understand a little bit more about, feel like it's on your path, you're learning some new magic, that I would definitely recommend at some point kind of leaning into it and learning about it. So we're reconsidering our bindings. We're also able to get out of a lot of contracts. That's the thing I think I'm most looking forward to when it comes to this eclipse, is getting out of contracts that we didn't even sign up for. So if it comes to what we inherited from our parents and our lineage and our grandparents and our great-grandparents and our great wherever they are, you know, lineage, grandparents. If we look at what we've inherited from them that we had no say in, that we had no say on, no say over, no say with, no say. We didn't have any opinion to give because we weren't here yet. We didn't have any say in it. Nobody was maybe thinking about us. Maybe they were. It depends on where you come from and who you are. But we inherited stuff that we didn't have a say on. This eclipse will allow you, in retrospect, as long as you've been doing work to kind of like remove some things from your lineage, you know, as long as you've been sitting in the work of cycle breaking and removing some thorns, okay, some thorns from where you come from. As long as you've been doing that, this eclipse allows us the light of, I'm free of it now. I don't have to be that. I don't have to be like them. I don't have to carry that. I don't have to bear the weight of it. It wasn't my choice in the first place. And now I get to be free of it, and I get to go and be with this new thing. I get to go and be in this new space. For the Persephone and Demeter story, it's like I get to be free of this responsibility of constantly having to grow on the earth. I get to be in the underworld now. I get to go be in the underworld now. And I think it's really a cycle, because it's like, well, I get to be in the underworld now, and then maybe eventually, okay, well, now I have to go back. I get to be free of the underworld. Let me go back and learn some things up top above. So I look at it as a circular thing, and so we kind of have to balance in both. So this one, we're getting out of some underworld contracts. We're getting out of some really big monumental shifts. The other thing about this too is that this Virgo full moon eclipse could be bringing gifts. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It feels good. It feels great. It feels lovely. It feels wonderful. We have this eclipse happening in the South Node, and when things happen in the South Node, things come to ground on the Earth. The South Node is about things being on the earth. It's about us being a human on the earth. It's about us being able to see stuff on the earth and breathe on the earth and be on the earth. So when we have South Node activations, you better bet yourself that there's gonna be some things that ground on the earth. You don't have to bet about it if you're not a gambler. It's just the truth. It's just the truth, figures of speech. It's just the truth. It's something that when things come to ground on the earth, the South Node normally is active. The South Node normally is activated. So if you're someone who has done work with the North Node in previous eclipses, so the previous North Node was in Aries, there's a previous North before that would have been in Taurus, right? The Taurus and Scorpio nodes. So if there's anything that you've been doing, it could have been before that too, because then before that was, Gemini, and then we had Cancer. So, the North nodes. And if you've been practicing for a really, really long time, then maybe even before those several spaces of North node places. If you have been intentionally working with North Node, or even if you go and look at the North Node in your chart and you're like, oh, wow, I have been doing work in that area, or a North Node in Pisces right now, it's like, oh, wow, I have been doing work in the Pisces area too, then there could be some things that are coming to ground for you. Do I know what that is? No. Do I think it's probably going to be there pretty soon? Yeah. Do I know how it's going to land? No. Do I think it's probably going to be pretty good? Probably. As long as you've been doing work that you agree with, as long as you've been doing work for you that's really true, that you're like, yeah, I love this brew, then probably what's grounding is loving you too. So if you're looking at that, great goodness golly, I love the gods. Thank you. So good. So we are going to have some things come to the earth and come to ground. And then when we get to the new moon solar eclipse, there's some more new purpose and understanding. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but new purpose and understanding. So this is going to help us come to the earth, help us ground, have a good look around at everything that's been happening. I don't know about you, but I know about me, and this eclipse season so far has allowed me to breathe again. I can breathe again. My head, I have clarity. It's like the sharpest my mind has ever been. Crazy. And I haven't even really changed anything with my diet. I haven't even really changed too much recently. So it's crazy to me that, like, here we are in maximum effort and clarity. It's pretty strange, and I like the rearrange so far. So ground the gifts. This is a time for blessings. This is a time, because if you listen to the previous episode, I was talking about the portals before the eclipse opened, right? The portals before the eclipse. So it's like we went through graduation, we received our honors, we received the gifts, we were able to have a conversation with Saturn about what is it that we want and how are we going to move and what's the future going to look like. And now we get to ground, and like the gravity of the work that we've done sets in. The gravity of the work, it's not just floating around anymore. Honestly, this moon could bring consecration, finalization, unionship with the work that has been, that we'll not ever have to do again. You know how sometimes you go through things and you're like, I don't ever want to go through that again? Okay, well, congrats. You got out of it? This moon will show you. This moon will let you be free of it. A moon of freedom? A moon of freedom? Okay, yeah. Moon of freedom. Moon of freedom. A moon of freedom. Interesting. So, going into this moon, enjoy the space. going into this moon. Enjoy the grace, enjoy the pace. Stay in your place how you need to, how you moving, how you grooving. Stay with you during this transition and change in position. And may it be a great, lovely eclipse for you. Let the eclipse come through. And then we're going to have the eclipse. Okay, after the eclipse, from the 14th to the 16th, the moon is going to be in Libra. Now, this is where our previous south node was, and this is going to be ruled by the Venus retrograde that is also in Aries. And again, remember, Mars that rules Aries is in Cancer, so this moon is also going to rule itself. So this is going to help us to see the balance, really, that we have truly created. Remember, I was talking about Libra and the story of Scorpio, Libra, and Virgo, how Libra is where we balance. Is this the transaction that I want? Is this really how I want to confront those things? Is this really what is? Is this really the truth? How is this just? Do I need to adjust, or is this just? Do I need to add justice, or is this already just for me? Adjust, or is it just? Do I trust it? Is it just? That's the Libra energy. So we really get to see, because the dark moon right now is still in Libra. So we're going to be able to see, thank you, that's true. We're going to be able to see really like not only what did we do, but what are we worth now? Now that we've been through this big change in position, now that we've altered ourselves, we've altered our lines, we've altered our ancestral times, what are we worth now? And because Venus is retrograde, it's a binding worth. It's a binding worth. This is what I'm worth now. Not only am I sure of it, I'm not going to let anything get in the way of that. I'm not going to let anyone get in my way of that. I'm not going to bind myself up in anything that would say I'm any less than that. One of the things I said on TikTok recently is that worth is work. Worth is work. To be able to sit in the worth and feel it and to believe it and to breathe it and to be it, it's work to get there. Whether you've inherited work that allows you to be in that worth, or it is work that you have done for yourself. Worth is work. To be able to sit in the worth, to sit in the success, to sit and breathe it and be it, that's work. The success and the worth itself, sometimes we just got to sit in it and be it and breathe it, but to get there, to get to that position is work. So there may be some things on this moon where it's like some darker truths that come through. Okay, some darker truths. This is what I've done. This is who I've become. This is where I want to go. This is what it has cost me to get here. This was the price that I really paid. That's the moon in Libra. This is the price I paid. This is why I'm worth what I'm worth. This is why the worth on my work, my life, myself, my person. If you want to look at your chart, it'll be 7th house Libra and Venus. Also, Taurus will be involved a little bit as well because it's ruled by Venus. So it'll be active in that. So this is what I'm worth. This was the cost. This was the cost. And one of the things that the spirits say to me on my team is that if you know the cost, then you're not lost. If you know the cost of it, then you're not lost. You know exactly what's going on, and everything has a cost. Everything has a cost. Everything that you would walk in, everything that you work in, everything that you talk about, all your relationships, every single job that you've ever had, everything has a cost to it. Being you, there's a cost to that. What did it cost you to get here? How did it cost you? And this, honestly, because the dark moon is in Libra still, this may be a moon where we just need to cry about it. This may be a moon where there just could be a lot of really big emotions that come up. Tears, rage, however you stage that, or it's in, your page and your story in your book. There's probably going to be a lot of really big emotions that come up. Don't overlook them. Don't overlook them, because once we leave this eclipse season, we're done. We're about to make a really big decision come the new moon solar eclipse in Aries. I know I have said we're going to talk about it when we get there. We have a lot to process before we get there, so we're going to talk about it when we get there, okay? So this is one of the things to sit with and process as you need to. That Libra moon is going to really allow us to see, like, what did it cost your family? What did it cost you to undo the work that came before you, or to inherit more of a brew? Maybe you wanted to sit in addition with some of that work and change position of it. So what did it cost you? What is the truth of what it cost you? Not just like, I know that it cost me, these smaller things. It's like the true essence and weight, gravity, now that you're at, you know how when you're in the middle of something, you can't really see the full truth of it. You can't really see the full truth of what's going on when you're in the middle of a situation or a relationship. But then you get out of say it's like a toxic relationship with an ex, right? You get out of the relationship and you're like, I can't even believe that I put up with that. I can't even believe that I couldn't see that. I can't believe that I would even set that as a standard for myself. Those are the kinds of truths. Maybe not exactly like that, but in retrospect, those are the kinds of truths that could come up during this moon phase. Also, because it's the dark moon, hello, hi, hey, look at the power of it. I've done this work to receive this power. Okay, well, then I'm not apologizing. I'm not apologizing. I'm not apologizing for it. I'm not saying sorry. And also, kind of like, how do I say this and not, you know what? I could bleep it out. Also, you. That's what this moon is. I've done the work, I've earned it. I'm not apologizing for it. Maybe things you felt bad about, felt ashamed of, felt wrong for doing. I'm not apologizing anymore. And also, anyone who would come against that, I have a new worth in myself, and it cost me maybe everything, to be honest with you. It cost me a lot. This is the cost that I paid, and nobody can argue with that. That's the truth of it. This is also a moon where justice could strike, justice could land, okay? We have a lot to understand within our truths of justice during this moon, especially if you're someone who has been kind of actively working in that South Node in Libra over the previous several years and doing work of justice and balance, liberation, and really working in those energies that Libra would require us to. I know for me that it was a rough South Node in Libra. The Venus retrograde that started the South Node in Libra off, it was July to September of 2023. Yep. That Venus retrograde really struck me. And not very kindly. So my whole South Node in Libra was working and making sure that I was in the worth that I really feel is necessary for me. And now we're out of the South Node in Libra and we're having another Venus retrograde right after this eclipse. During this eclipse season is when the Venus retrograde is happening, but right after this eclipse with the Libra moon. So we're about to really see from that July to September, if you had anything that was kind of harsh of 2023, the July to September time frame of that, going into that South Node in Libra and the work that you've been doing in that. What did it earn you? What did it cost you? And you're not going to be lost. And you know what? The cost to not being lost is knowing exactly where you are. And sometimes the truth is not what we want to hear. Sometimes the truth is blinded because it is so bright. So, and this is going to be right after the full moon. So this is a moon where you're going to receive in precision something about a prior decision, something you maybe already decided on. I don't know what that would be. So I'll leave it to you to understand on your levels if it resonates in the reciprocity space. And also, we're receiving some stuff. Again, retrogrades are binding and harvest. So receiving some justice for some people, receiving justice in motherhood, also with the dark moon that is in Libra. So receiving justice in mother, receiving justice in motherhood. And we have the story of Virgo and Persephone. Again, right, it has to do with the mother story. So it could be motherhood as you are a child of a mother. We all come from someone, yeah? We all come from someone. So if you need justice in that area and you've been doing work in that area, there could be a part of that in your world of truth and in your justice offerings and receivings as well. It's gonna be, honestly, the eclipse is gonna be really big, and I feel like the moon after it is gonna be kind of just as big. Granted, it's not going to be an eclipse, but I feel like it's going to be kind of just as impactful, because then we also, during that moon in Libra, that's when Mercury is going to start to retrograde in Aries, and that moon in Libra is ruled by a Venus retrograde that is also in Aries. And the moon that was in the eclipse was also is Virgo, which is ruled by Mercury. So we have this kind of like immediate turnaround. Also, Mercury, since it's about to go, it's going to be like slowing down. This eclipse is probably going to feel like a standstill of time, to be honest. A little bit of a time standstill. Holy cow. Whoa. Time is gonna, which is interesting. We don't always get moments like that, so a little bit of a standstill. So interesting. I don't know what that's going to feel like, but I kind of like it when time slows down, to be honest with you. I feel like time more often than not will speed up and then come back to a normal pace, and then speed up a little bit and come back to a normal pace. So I like it when time slows down. It's a rare treat. It's a sweet treat. I like when time is slower a little bit every once in a while. It's a good thing, you know. So we might have time slow down a little bit. Okay, going into, here we go, Mercury going retrograde in Aries, which is also going to be ruled by, interesting enough, the Mars that's in Cancer. So the Mercury retrograde, when it goes retrograde, is going to be ruled by the moon in Libra. Oh, okay, so what have we been talking about? Really big words of truth revealed. Also, could be some things where you're like, oh, I needed that. I needed that. I needed to go through that. I needed to hear that. I needed that hard truth back then. I needed to make that decision back then to make it to where I am now. I needed to go through that hard thing back then so I can make it to here. I needed to go through that hardship, that pain, the trauma, whatever it is. I'm not saying that it's warranted. No, I'm not saying it's warranted. And also, we're human and we go through hard stuff sometimes, you know? So sometimes, in my experience, perspective, in the spirit, this is how I look at it. Maybe to, you know, it is what it is. I don't always, this is how I look at the hardships in the spirit sometimes. It's like sometimes in the spirit, we've just got to go through hard things, because how else are you going to mine the wisdom that you're going to need when other people need help, or mine the wisdom that you need for the journey in front? It's like spirit, when you're planting a seed, it's got to root into the dirt first. It's got to go through the darkness and go into the earthly soil. Is far more dense than the air where the plant is going to grow up top, you know? So if we're rooting down in something, there's usually some hardships that happen, or like we're going to run into a rock every once in a while, or, you know, maybe there's a worm that comes by and eats a part of the root off. It's just, sometimes it is what it is, you know? And we've got to figure out how to work around that. So that's how I kind of look at hardships in life, is if I'm going through something really difficult, normally I'm rooting in something. I ask for something and spirit's got to give me the roots to be able to have the fruits eventually. So if you're looking back at the truths of what you've been through and what it cost you to really get here, okay, well, not only do I have the truth of it now, I understand the roots, and I understand why I had to go through and root in what I was rooting in, how I rooted in it. What's the fruit? That's also going to be a part of the truth that's revealed. So congratulations if you receive some of the fruit. That could be a part of this as well. So good. Oh my gosh. The fruit, oh my God, may it be juicy, you know, and abundant. That sounds great. Thanks. Love you, fruit. So what did you root in? What's the fruit gonna be? You're gonna see. That's the moon in Libra, and when Mercury goes retrograde. This Mercury going retrograde, honestly, a promising time, I feel like, for this eclipse season. Yeah, a promising time. A promising time as in a promising time. It's a promising time. Feels like I need to leave that a little bit more vague. So, you know, receive how you need to. It feels like it's going to be a little bit more promising. Promising, promises, promiser, promisey, promises, promises. There you go. Promises, Mercury retrograde, promises. Because we are making a lot of prominent decisions through this eclipse season about really, really big changes in position. So it's like, you're worth the work, and I promise I'll do it for you. You're worth this, I promise I'll do that for you. You're worth it. So I'm making the promise to myself. I'm worth it. I'm making the promise here. I'm worth it. So I'm going to promise without fear. Or if you are afraid, you know what? That's really valid. I'm promising. Here we go. I'm promising. Here we go. I'm promising. Here I am. And here we go. So that's a lot of this Mercury retrograde in Aries. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Mercury retrograde in Aries as it pertains to the new moon solar eclipse in Aries coming up. Like I said, we're going to talk more about that at another time when we have more time and room to digest it. For now, we'll rest it, and we're going to focus on some other things. So on the 17th, on the 17th, the sun is going to be conjunct the North Node in Pisces at 27 degrees. This is going to be an interesting switch up, because we also have from the 17th to the 19th, the moon is going to be in Scorpio. Remember, again, the relationship between Virgo and Scorpio, and having our contracts be bound up in Virgo, and then we have the exchanges in Scorpio. And this is honestly one of my favorite aspects, characteristics, qualities of Scorpio, especially when it comes to protection work, is that Scorpio can force exchanges. That's the relationship between Virgo and Scorpio. Virgo has not yet had the exchange. Scorpio, though, can force the exchange. That's a part of the energy of it. Is like, now that you're in the contract, you've already signed it, we've balanced everything in Libra. Okay, well, the exchange must occur. You are under contract at that point. So granted, you know, not always super fun, not always pleasant. And the reason I say it's one of my favorite things for protection work is because if you can really learn how to use that energy and sit in it and understand how to be just in it and trust in it and learn to like just revere it and understand it within the self, then it can become, if other people were to come after you, it can become a very, very, very direct tool of protection. So shout out to the Scorpio energy, the 8th house energy, Mars, Pluto, and what you got going on. So when it comes to the moon in Scorpio, there could be some things, because we've been through the eclipse in Virgo, we're understanding getting out of contracts, getting into new ones. What do we want? Okay, well, this moon in Scorpio, this is like mysteries revealed. Mysteries revealed. Maybe you need a shield. Maybe it's time to wield. What is the force of exchange then? What's the force of exchange? Because with the sun conjunct the north node at 27 degrees at pretty much the same time that the moon is moving into Scorpio, we're in eclipse season. We're getting out of those really big Scorpio contracts from 2021 to 2023. Okay, well, I'm free of that now. I'm free of it now, which means that the underworld is clear again. The underworld's clear again. I don't have to fear anymore. Fear maybe, you know, discern for yourself your relationship with fear. Everyone has a different relationship with fear. It's a very, very primal spirit. It's a very, very, very primordial spirit. Love you, fear, and also it is. So, but regardless and in regard to both at the same time, relationship with fear, the underworld's clear. The underworld is clear. The shadows are still, maybe. The shadows are, it's clear. The underworld is clear. It's clear. It's clear. It's clear. It's clear. It's clear. It's clear. Do you want to bring anything into it? It's clear. It's clear. It's clear. The sun conjunct the north node is also like a whole brand new purpose. A whole brand new purpose way high up in the sky. That's the north node. Way high. I find that people who follow spiritual paths more often than not are following the north node energy. The north node allows us and asks us to get out of the comfort zone, build new skills, grow new things, and kind of walk in blind faith, or walk blindly into the work that we're doing. Trust in the spirit and trust in the spirits around us. That's a scary thing to do. Speaking of fear, talking about fear, I'm already here, I guess. It's a scary thing to do. You got a purpose? Oh, golly. You got a dream? Oh, boy. Oh, gosh. Oh, wow. I guess so, guys. I guess so. So I find that a lot of people who follow the North Node path, they usually end up integrating a lot of spiritual understanding, unless their purpose is just to completely reject spirituality and just to completely reject kind of like this space. That's also valid, okay? To like reject the normalcy and the normality, because that's kind of what the North Node requires. Rejecting rejecting normal, to reject normal, to reject the normalcy, to reject normality, to reject what society would tell you, to reject what he, she, they would to reject it, to reject the fact that you might need a job and you want to go focus on growing a business, or that to reject, just rejection. It's rejecting everything else that other people might say and say, yeah, that thing that's way high up in the sky, that's what I want. I don't care about any of this other stuff. I don't care about any of this other stuff. The South Node brings us back to Earth and is like, hey, listen, you still live in reality and we still have to like care. We still have to care. We still have to be a human here on the Earth. But the North Node is, I don't care. I'm going to go do that thing. So with the sun conjunct the North Node, we have this really big highlight on, okay, now that we've been brought down into reality with this eclipse, what is the new purpose? What's the illumination on the new purpose? While at the same time we have the moon in Scorpio. So it's like, not only what is the new purpose, where are we in the underworld now? What contracts do we want? How do we feel about this? Also, Scorpio 2 is about our power, ancestral inheritance, the will, creation, partnership also. purpose, the willing purpose. How are you going to will your purpose now? There will be more revealed about this in the coming eclipse season. In the next eclipse season. When we get to the fall and we have our next eclipse season, we're about 6 months out from now, there's going to be more revealed because we don't have a Pisces eclipse in this eclipse season. We have a Pisces North Node, but we don't have a Pisces eclipse in this eclipse season. So we have a lot of Pisces conjunctions and different things happening with Piscean energy. But when we get into those eclipses that come in the fall, we do have a Pisces eclipse, and that one is going to be the full moon in Pisces. So there's going to be some things that are revealed when it comes to this eclipse season that are going to be even more illuminated when we get to our next eclipse season later in 2025. And this is one of those days, the sun conjunct the North Node in Pisces at 27 degrees, where we're going to have a really high ride. Way high up in the sky. This is the new purpose. This is what we're being asked to walk into. You could, a day of callings possibly also too, making deals with spirit. Oh my goodness. Making deals with spirit, let them hear it. Apparently making deals with spirit really saying, okay, now that you've seen the reality of what you've done, now that you've seen the reality of what you've spun and what you've begun, because Virgo is a continuation, remember the cycle going back and forth of the underworld and the upper world. That's just what it is. So being in the continuation, now that you've seen what you've accomplished, now that you've seen what it has cost you, here's the new purpose, here's the new calling, and how do you feel about it? That's the moon in Scorpio. How do you feel about it? What are you comfortable with? How are you going to process this? And what is your practice going to look like now that you have all this information, now that the mystery is revealed, now that there's not really a lot of secrets left over to this? Like, if there was a plate full of secrets, you've eaten basically all of them. There might be like a sweet treat left, but like they're basically all gone. We have the secrets revealed, so what now? Maybe a shield a little bit, maybe some protection a little bit. Again, we have the dark moon about to move into Scorpio, so we're starting to feel kind of the shadow mothers move into that space. It's going to be it'll be a different pace. We're not quite there yet, but yeah, this is going to be, now that you know the secrets, what are you willing to do? Now that you know the power you have, who are you going to become? Now that you understand what you've done and what you've spun and what this eclipse has brought through the gifts and the revealings and the turn into this new person of you, now what are you going to brew? Now what are you going to do? We've given a new purpose to you. You're feeling in the new purpose. You're understanding. We being the spirits on your team. Not necessarily me. I'm happily here to bring the information, and also, yes, the spirits that you're with. So I guess people are spirits too. So yeah, except I'm not going to be there telling you this is this and this is that. So, you know, it is what it is. Sitting with your spirits. Sit with your spirits. A lot to digest, you know. So mystery is revealed. How are you going to shield yourself? How are you going to protect yourself? We're not offered power without having to protect it. Oh, golly. That's a lesson from, honestly, for me, when the South Node was in Scorpio. That's crazy. Yeah, we're not offered power. If we're offered power, we have to protect it. We're not offered power unless we're able to protect it. So like if you're given power, especially with like Virgo, Scorpio crossovers, if you're given power and you're offered power, okay, well, you better figure out how to make sure nobody can take it from you now. You better be able to make sure that nobody can weaponize it against you or hurt you with it or take it from you or play with it like it's a toy. Ugh, gross. So now that we've had this striking of justice, there's this eclipse that's come through, there's different things that have been happening that are just like grounding, monumental, big shifts, big changes, big rearranges, understandings, open handings, let it land. You're going into something new. Let the underworld show you what you've been through, who you are, and the sun conjunct at the same time is like, the underworld is clear, there's a new purpose here. What I feel like is like if you're standing in the underworld simultaneously able to look at the sun North Node conjunction way high up in the sky, it's like, it's so bright, it's like blinding light, all the shadows hurried and scurried away to something else. It's like you're standing alone in this light in the underworld. Crazy. Okay, well, here you are. Where are you going? What you gonna do? How are you gonna let the new come through? This will be a moon of how. And take a bow. How? And take a bow simultaneously. Oh, that's so good. Oh my goodness. Interesting. Interesting. We're going to have more in the next episode. This is a crazy... Enjoy the eclipse. We're going to have more in the next episode. We've got a couple weeks until that new moon solar eclipse in Aries comes through. I'll have more information coming up. The eclipses are honestly hitting me kind of hard this month, and they usually do, so that's like to be expected. But the eclipses that we're in are asking me to rest a lot. Rest, digest, understand. So I'll have more to bring through for you when it is time, when again, allowance of things, when I'm allowed to get up and when I've received everything I need to and I can get back up again and return to the creative process. There will be more of me that you will see, and that is true. So congratulations to you on the work that you've done and what you've spun and who you become and what you've agreed to. Signing contracts is a big thing to do. Signing contracts, going into a new purpose, new era, receiving gifts. Here we go. Here you go. You know, it's your story. Here I go too, apparently. It's incredible. It's incredible. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What story are you gonna write now? What are you gonna do? I want to know. The world wants to know. What are you gonna do? I'll leave that with you. I look forward to hearing about it if ever you want to tell me. This is true. Yeah. If there's anything else, that's kind of it. I'll talk to you next time. Enjoy the eclipse. Rest if you need to. I know I've been needing it. Let there be a return of everything you've earned. We don't sign contracts for no payment, right? So let there be a return of what you've earned. What did you earn? Hopefully it was some really great stuff. You'll find out here soon. And I'll talk to you soon as well.